There we go.
Hey Karen, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on and thanks for being early. Shows how
No, no
shows
problem.
how professional some people are because I've done this a long
Yeah.
time. And you can tell the people that have been doing this longer have more respect and they're like, I get it. I understand. You want to go ahead just so thanks for being early. I always start these early just for my sake to make sure all my stuff's working. Like I never
Yep.
plan on anybody coming early, but it's just once somebody comes in, you're like, all right, let me count down from 60 and let's get them in here. So they don't think I'm anxiously
Yes.
awaiting their arrival.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But
Is my sound okay?
hey, you're all good. You're everything's if
Yeah, great.
it's all good. But thanks for wanting to come on the show. Thanks for reaching out and thanks for
Yeah.
coming on and working with me. Because I know last time we had this, I had a meeting come up and I couldn't move it. And I was like, here we go. And then glad we found a space where we could able to give, 30, 45 minutes to an hour of time to do this. So thanks for
Yeah.
your patience.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
So Karen, I guess let's just go ahead and dive deep into the podcast. I used to always when I would start these, I would always just chit chat a little bit, but then I realized that the guests are just like, "Come on, man, let's just get on with it." So I want to talk about your book. I want to talk about all these things. I want to talk about everything, but I guess let's just start with what's happening right now. We'll make a full circle at the end of the podcast. So right now you're in the middle of um, announcing a book which you've already come out with called "Ins and Outs of My Vagina: A Penetrating Memoir." You're out promoting that right now. So, how is the selling going? Is it a bestseller yet? How has the process of promoting the book been going for you?
Yeah, well, it's going to be a bestseller after everybody that listens to your podcast goes and gets one.
Well, I hope
But
so.
no, we're not there yet. But I have to say, I'm really surprised and pleasantly surprised at how well the promotion has been going because most self published authors, believe it or not, never sell more than 1,000 copies of the book in the lifetime of the
Mhm.
book. And I am happy to report that I've been able to do that in just the first year. So it is really amazing to be in that company of hitting the 1,000 books sold milestone. And it just won an award from Reader's Favorite in their 2022 book contest. It got the Gold Award in nonfiction in the humor and comedy genre. So it is just amazing. Look, and for those on YouTube, I'll just show it really quick. It has a little gold seal now with the award sticker. So um, it's been an amazing ride and just it exceeded all my expectations. And I think the bestseller comes when it comes. It might take 2 or 3 years, but it'll get there.
You know what's crazy is I look at books kind of like I look at movies. Like when you mentioned that, with a self-published, you don't expect to sell over 1,000 copies or whatever. That's kind of like when Kevin Smith first started out making movies when he maxed out his entire credit card to make Clerks, one of my favorite movies
Yes.
of all time, one of the greatest comedies that
So good.
just I mean took the whole train off the tracks with that movie. And then they're like, a company come to him and they said, "Hey man, this shit is brilliant. We love it. Let's go ahead and give you more money so you can go in and you can do some other things." And I think that happens with a lot of authors. Like I know back in when I was in school, the Aragon series, those were big books. And I remember
Mm,
that guy was like 16 when he first wrote the book. And then people loved it. And so the big publishing company came after him and like, "Hey, let's write 15 sequels that nobody's gonna read. But
right.
but let's do it." And but I find that so interesting that that could happen. Like I think we saw that with
Yeah.
where the Crawdads Sing. I think that started off
Yes.
as a self-published book, and then halfway through, publishers picked it up to like, "This is brilliant," and then it just became this massive. I mean, I think Where the Crawdads Sing could be one of the biggest selling books that I've seen done in a long time since that Jim Morrison book from the
Yeah.
80s. That was crazy.
Yeah, I keep thinking like, okay, it's going to be like 50 Shades of Grey. Like,
Right.
no one wants to admit that they've read it, but they're all like glued to the book. And I think it's kind of the same thing with the ins and outs of my vagina. It's like, okay, I'm really curious about what's in there. I want to read it, but like, like, I don't know. I don't really want other people to see me reading it.
Yeah, it's like I've never read the 50 Shades of Grey books. Never read, but I did read. I don't want to say I got cornered in, but I was doing a podcast with my friends and they were like, "Hey, you've got to read Where the Crawdads Sing." I had heard about it, so I went and picked up a
Right.
copy and realized it was this big chick flick of a book. And I said, "Oh man, they wrote me into reading a girl book, right?" And I said, "Oh crap, here we go." But then turns out I was like, "Hey, this shit is excellent." This book
Right.
is excellent. And I just watched the movie last night and I was like, the movie was excellent. And so I may happen to like the 50 Shades of Grays. I never know until you read them.
Don't knock it till you try it. Right.
Right. So with the ins and outs of my vagina being the title of it, that was probably a great ploy to like self-publish, because I don't think a lot of publishers would have jumped on that, because I know when David Spade was writing his book, he wanted it to be My Stupid Effing Book, but the publishing company HarperCollins was like, "No, you can't do that because you're saying this. You have to call it something else." And so they landed on the original
Right.
the title now. So that has to be a plus for it, right? You can title it whatever,
Yeah,
put
you would
whatever.
think. I mean, I think there's pluses, there's pros and cons to
Right.
it, right?
Mhm.
And actually the original title was I Don't Know My Vagina. That was
Okay.
kind of like my working title. And then when I started working with my editor and I was brainstorming things, and I was one of my friends actually who was in a sweaty wrestling gym with me while I was writing, my son was at wrestling practice. She's like, you know what? I like the ins and outs of my vagina. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. I think
Mhm.
that's it. And I took it back to my editor and he was like sold. He's like, that's beautiful. Like, let's go with it. So you never know where inspiration's gonna hit. But I think some people look at the title and they have assumptions about it. Like,
Mhm.
oh, is this just going to be all her sexual conquests? Is this just going to be another like raunchy for the sake of being raunchy book? And other people are like, wow, good for you. That sounds empowering. I want to read it. So I think it has like a little bit of a mix. But I'm here to say it's not just a list of my conquests. There is definitely sex in the book and it does not
Right.
disappoint. So if you kind of like a little bit of that, like behind the scenes smutty read, you're going to get a little bit of that. But it's a lot of other stuff, right? It's going through puberty. It's the mean girl moments where people
Mm.
shame you for your body. It's going to have a bikini wax and having no idea what to expect and then being told to flip over on all fours. And you're like, wait, what? It's, pregnancy and dealing with the episiotomy, which is kind of when they give you a little slit in your vagina, in your vulva, I should say, the
Okay, sure.
outside, so the baby can come out without
Okay.
tearing into a million pieces.
Okay.
Um, so like there were all these things that like I went through and I had to learn the hard way. I didn't understand, what an episiotomy really was. I thought until I was 30 years old that like certain normal body functions were disgusting and there was something wrong with my body, and wondered why I wasn't having orgasms left and right like a guy, like what's going on. And I'm like, if I can just touch one person and like one person reads my book and goes, oh, I am normal. Okay.
Mm.
Like that to me makes it all worth it.
You mentioned that you hit on uh periods in the book and just stuff that people don't hit on a lot. And that brings to a segue that a while ago they Disney put out a movie about the panda, the big giant panda, right? And I remember watching it because I do movie reviews on the podcast and I love Disney. And I remember feeling weirded out that this little girl was having periods in a Disney movie. And I was like, I don't know, like I don't think a 3-year-old would watch this. A 2-year-old, I don't think they're ready for that journey yet. So I got to talking with people on the podcast and they made me realize, look, I understand you don't want your 3 or 4-year-old daughter or son watching that, but you want the 10-year-olds, the 11-year-olds that this is about to happen to say, oh, this is normal. It happens. It's even happening to Disney princesses per se, and so it
Right.
kind of made me turn a corner and I was like, okay, I understand it. So I like what you're doing. You're kind of doing what an Anna Faris did with her book, what like an Amy Schumer did with the girl with the lower back tattoo,
Mhm.
kind of going into that risque era with a comedic value to it. Because you because
Yeah, like,
anybody that
we
can
can laugh
appreciate
about it.
because anybody that can appreciate themselves is people that can laugh at themselves,
Mhm.
you know?
100%. Yeah, and it's so normal. And I hear what you're saying, like as a mom of two boys, like yeah, I don't know if I need my 3-year-old saying, "Hey, what's a period?" But at the same time, I mean, most moms are going to the bathroom and they have to bring their kids in with them, right? When
Sure.
they're little. Like because you can't just leave a toddler running around your house, they'll burn themselves or stick a finger in a light socket. I mean, who knows, right? So they're bringing them into the bathroom. Well, what are you going to do when you have your period and you have to swap out a tampon and your kid's like, "What's that?" Like, I mean, they probably already even know about it.
Mm.
It's just like, it's so normal. Like now my kids are so funny. Like one of them will the other day, not the other day, it was like maybe a year ago, but I was in the process of publishing the book and getting ready to launch it. And I said something about my period. And my son was like, "Oh God, so are you just like bleeding in your underwear right now?" And my other one hits him and goes, "No, duh, she's wearing a tampon." And I was just like, perfect, like exactly.
Right.
Okay, we're just moving on. This is like not a big deal. Like they're just it's so part of their everyday life now. Um that it's just nothing. And I hope that if they're in school one day and one of their classmates gets their period, that they're not going to be that dick that's like, look, you got period on your pants.
Right.
Like
Right.
they'll be the one that takes off their sweatshirt and goes, "Look, wrap this around your waist and just give it back to me next period," or something, like whatever. And then it's not a big thing.
Right. It's, I don't think I was ever grossed out by any of that because I was, I don't want to say this to sound like a dick to my dad because my dad's still here. They're still married, but it was like he was always working or he was always doing stuff. So I was pretty much raised with my mom, my grandma, and my
Yep.
sister, so it was never weird for me. So now today I can always, if they're in an attitude, I go, okay, get on your rack, get off of it, please, so we can go on about our day and just make a joke about it. But when you say that that they probably already know, that's very interesting because when I was growing up, you would see TV and they would have the birds and the bees talk, and you would always be so scared. You're like, oh, I dread when this comes. But then the times had changed when I got to the age, and pretty soon it was like, okay, you don't have to talk. I'm pretty sure you know about it from school because you had to have sex health class, you had to have all this stuff. They're like, so just go about it. We're gonna keep the awkwardness away from me, from you, and you already know what happens. You make the parts fit. Hey, it's over with. It's weird, and I wonder now because I got two nephews and they're 3 and 1, and I got a niece that's 6 months, and it's crazy to me to think that what is going to happen in 13 years where they're going to realize this and figure it out. Like what's the new technology going to be? Because now it's health class. Now it's, I mean, pornography.
Well,
it's you,
that's what I was going to say. Unfortunately, now it's
right,
the internet and it
right,
is the pornography.
right.
And that is such a disservice to our children because that
Yeah.
is not what sex is going to look like for you. Probably like 99.9% sure that's not what sex is going to be like
It's not
for
going to
you.
be the Christian Grey stuff. That's all Hollywood.
No, exactly. No, so and if it is, then that's your jam, then that's your
Right.
jam.
Go
But
ahead.
like for most people, that's not what it's like. So then it's like, okay, well, why isn't my partner satisfied? I'm doing what I saw in this film. And
Mm,
it's like, well, most guys don't realize like women, only
mm,
20% of women can actually orgasm from penetration alone. So that's no clitoral stimulation. Like that is not going to work for your partner for 80% of the women out there. But they see it in a film and they're like, "Oh, that's what I'm supposed to do." Okay. And then, it leads to so many other problems.
mm.
So yeah, we can't just let them figure it out on our own. We have got to have the awkward conversation. And the more you talk about it, the less awkward it gets.
You ever thought about how are you gonna let your husband do it? Or are you gonna have you figured out how you're gonna break it to him, tell him, hey, this is how it works?
So they already know.
Oh,
They
okay.
they have
So
had,
so how did that
yep.
happen? How did that talk happen?
Yeah. So a lot of it did stem from me writing the book because I started the book in
Ah,
2019. So this has kind of been like a little bit of a process.
right.
And so once I started writing the book, I was like, well, we got to tell them what I'm doing. And they got to know they can't read it. Like they know they're not allowed to read the book. And so my husband did have the initial
Hang on,
conversation
I want
about,
to interrupt you just one quick.
yeah.
How you would know you would have a problem with your kid if your mom wrote a book and it was My Vagina and your kid was like, I want to read it right now. You know you would have to take that kid to therapy the second it said it. There's no way. I would be like, no, kid. What is going on? You've got problems. You need to get out of the house. You need to find something. But
Yeah.
so
Amen.
thankfully they
I
don't want to
agree.
read it. Thankfully they don't want to read it.
No, no, definitely not. And I think, I think there is a sense of curiosity because I think even for them, they can't fathom what's in the book because they're still young. Like they're not having
Right.
sex. They're not even,
Right.
I mean, I told my son to just invite a girl over to the house that he likes. And he's like, no, no, I'm
Right.
in sixth grade. I can't be having girls over. So
Right.
they're in like a totally different place than I was at their age, which thankfully is a good thing. So yeah, wait, what was the question? Now I forgot what I was saying.
Who had to talk with your sons?
Oh, yeah. So my husband did the talk.
Okay.
But then it was funny because we were like walking one day and my son just out of nowhere is like, well, how long does the process take? And I'm like, what process? Like, I don't even know what he's talking about. And he's like,
Oh my goodness.
like to make the baby. And I'm like, well, I'm like, the process itself takes about like 30 seconds. I'm like,
About 15,
but you
20,
can make
depending on
it.
the person.
Right. I'm like, but it can take longer if you're enjoying it. And he was like, okay, that's enough. Thank you. He'd heard all he needed to hear.
But I want to say this though. My family was never like that. We didn't, I hated, like, I hated talking, like, even saying that
Yeah.
stuff. Like now, my brother, he married his wife and she is just wide open. And I'm like, hey, I'm almost 25. And I'm like, hey, can we just like calm down for it's still awkward for me. And I'm like, just stop for 30 seconds and think about it. I never talked like that growing up. So it still kind of grosses me out a little bit. So please just, but I'm glad that a lot of people grow up like that, because it's
Yeah.
now they're gonna, it's they don't have to go through the crap I go through.
Right. Well, it's crazy because, like, as a kid, my parents didn't really talk to me about that stuff either.
Uh,
And I remember just sitting in the living room, like watching TV, or if a movie was on and they were like starting to get like a little more than just kissing, it was like so awkward. I'm just like, I don't want to be in this room watching this with my parents right now. Get me out of here because it wasn't normalized, and my parents really, it was kind of like figured out. Like I was given the message, don't have sex till you're married. That's it. End of story. Thanks for playing. But they never came back when I got married and were like, okay, so now this is how it works, right? It was just like, well, we've assumed you figure it all out, you
can you
know?
imagine? Can you imagine what it's like for those Duggar kids? Like when they get married, they have to have the talk when they get that. That was probably some of the most awkward stuff to be, I don't know, 40 years old and getting married, and then your dad have to sit you that would be the most weird stuff I could ever imagine, where it's like, because I'm pretty sure if what they say is real, like if it's legit, their religion and what they're doing is legit, I'm pretty sure they don't know. If they're really
Yeah.
standardized, and I mean, I'm pretty sure they don't know. And it's
How would you
crazy.
know?
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's crazy. That would be,
Yeah.
I would be like, here, son, here's a phone. Just figure it out. It would be, at 40 years
Yeah.
old. But I want to go
And that's
back.
why the book is,
I
yeah,
want
go ahead.
I want to go back because I want to hit on this point later because it's going to come up in a conversation.
Sure.
So you went to college, you leave college, you
Mhm.
graduate, you go to Florida. You want to
Yes,
be a movie star, Karin Freeland
I
on the
did.
billboard. So you do Justin to Kelly, you go to like All My Children, you get all these things, and then what happens?
I got an idea to go get a job in corporate and make as much money as possible for 1 year. Because waiting tables is really hard to like also make your auditions. It's like, okay, well, I got a shift on Tuesday, so I'm gonna miss the audition, so I can't book a job. But then, oh, I can make the audition, but I got a shift on Thursday, so I can't actually make the day that they're going to shoot this commercial or whatever. So it just felt like it was always really hard to get ahead in the acting world. So I'm like, that's it. I'm going to quit waiting tables and I'm just going to go into corporate. And literally 4 months in, I get my first commission check. It's got 4 numbers on it. It was like 1,000 and change. And I was like, oh, $1,000. I mean, I'm a starving artist, right? Like, I'd never seen so much money in one place. And I was just instantly addicted to the
One
money
check, I
drug.
can make rent and buy food and know I'm not going to die tomorrow.
Right. And go out and have a little fun too. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, go to dinner, go to the bar, whatever. And that for me was just so exciting because being in New York City, working paycheck to paycheck, like that sucks, you know, like everybody else is going out and having fun. And it's like, you want to live like that too. So I ended up kind of saying, well, I'll try to act on the side, you know, and I still did some stuff here and there on the side. But I really, once I got into corporate, I was like, ooh, how do I earn more of this money? How do I get a bigger title? How do I, you know, prove that I'm amazing and like have this status symbol that everyone else around me seems to be wanting also? And that was it. I went from, you know, T-Mobile to pharmaceutical sales, to Verizon, spent 9 years there, went to an energy company for 3 years. And then I had a total midlife crisis at the ripe old age of 39. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like,
Right.
I
So,
was not put here to make PowerPoints.
so you're doing that. And when did the, I don't know if it was a realization, but when did you kind of just put the acting in the back of your mind, just like, forget it, I'm doing too well here?
Yeah, that would have been when I started my training role. So that would have been 2008. Like I had just gotten married. I got a training job, and all of a sudden it was like I was off. My schedule was all over the place. You know, I'd be in Maryland for a week or I'd be in Pennsylvania for 4 days. And it just logistically was a nightmare to try to schedule anything. And all my agents were getting pissed because they'd send me out and be like, hey, they want you to come in. And I'd be like, oh, I'm out of town for work. And they're like, this needs to be your job. So it just kind of like the phone stopped ringing, you know? So it was a little bit of both. It was a little bit of me consciously being like, okay, I'm not going to really have time for this anymore. And a little bit of the agents just being like, okay, if you're not serious about this, we'll find somebody who is.
You know, I still struggle with that today because I'm still living in that lifestyle. Like I'm trying to do this, which is barely bringing in any cash flow. Like it's bringing in something, but it's not. But I've been doing this since I was 18 years old. So I didn't go to college. I've been
Wow.
doing this and I've been doing jobs. Like I've had so many jobs because, and it's been part-time jobs. Like, and people, you get made fun of all the time. You're still living at home with your parents. And I'm like, but I have a reason for like, it's not that I plan on doing that. It's just, that's how the cards fell. They didn't fall face up. They
Mm-hmm.
fell face down. And it's like, you know, now it's getting better. Now I'm getting more
Good.
sponsors for the podcast. It's starting to rejuvenate, started to get big. And, I did life insurance. I sold life insurance. And I'm going to say this 6 miserable months. I hated it. It wasn't that I hated it. It was just that when I went in there, I don't want to say I was bamboozled. I was not told that you didn't get a weekly check like
Oh,
like a normal job. I didn't realize you had to go in there and you had to make your money. So I was just dealt the wrong hand. I think because I was given all these old leads to call and these people had already told these people 20 times no. So how was I going to make
right.
it any better telling them yes? Like I'm literally sitting there. And the bad thing was, and I don't hate this company. Because the people helped me out so much. They gave me money when I needed it, filled the car up, all that types of things. But they were just like, you have to be here Monday and Thursday, 12 hours, and you have to call for 8 hours. you have to ask permission for bathroom breaks. You have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, and you're not getting paid, and you're using your own phone and using your own gas. And that was kind of was like, well, wait a minute. You're basically using us. You're making us a sweatshop. And then every time I
Yeah.
would bring that up, they would agree, but would never change anything. So finally, right before Christmas last year, right before Christmas last year, I realized something had to change. So I text my supervisor, because they're always asking you, what's your goals for the company? What's your goals for the company?
Right.
My goal is to make damn money so I can live. And that would be my goal, to make money.
Yeah.
I made in 6 months, I probably made a couple grand. That's what I made on my own, not what I was given, because they would help you out every
Yeah.
now and then. So Christmas comes last year. I text my supervisor. I was already fed up at this point, because they go, hey, you're on Christmas, or it was Thanksgiving break. You guys don't have to come in for these amount of days, but if you do, that's fine. Well, then I didn't go in because I had family functions. It was Thanksgiving. We told we didn't have to come in. And then they go on this big group chat, okay, for those of you that come in, you're getting a bonus and you're getting all this stuff, yada, yada, for coming in. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. If it was optional,
Right.
why should everybody be left out? So I texted my supervisor the next day and I said, hey, what are your goals for me? I tell you my goals every time, but what are your goals for me? And it was literally, if you don't make this amount of money by Christmas, you're gone. And I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to leave now. I can't do
Yeah.
this anymore. So see you later. So to say sales is my low point, that would be an understatement, because I am not good at sales at all. It was crazy. I could sell the
Well, do you want to
podcast.
be good at
I
sales?
could sell
That's
the
the other
podcast.
thing.
Well, selling my own stuff. Like if I had a like if I was selling this drinking water right here, I could sell the shit out of this. What is Life Exist
Right.
gonna do? Just give me a check? Like like I sell the podcast. Boom, boom. I can
Yeah.
sell the crap out of it. But selling anything else, it's like good luck.
Because
And
there's no attachment to it.
right. And
You
I
don't
think I
have
think
that
that's the point.
passion for it.
Right. I think it's the
Yeah.
passion, and I also think it's commitment. Like I'm not as committed to selling a Walmart water bottle as I am to something that's lasted me 6, 7 years, you know?
Yeah. Oh, well, it's so relatable. I mean, that was a lot of why I was just like, I can't do this corporate thing anymore. Like I got so burnt out and I kept giving them everything. It was like, here's my blood, like I haven't slept in weeks. I've cracked 3 teeth because I'm so stressed. I'm grinding at night. Like this is not healthy for me. And it was same thing. Like the carrot kept moving. I kept getting passed up for promotions. And I was just like, there has to be more to life. Like
Mm.
this can't be it. I can't just sit around and make PowerPoints all day. Like, no. And now I love what I do, because I've been able to totally reinvent my life and it's great.
Now, I want to ask you this on a personal level, and you don't have to answer any question that I'm going to ask, but
Okay.
I want to know what, without giving me a digit, what were you making per year at this job?
Oh, multiple
But
6 figures. So I mean, I don't
okay,
mind giving a figure
okay,
if you
sure,
want. Because I just think it's good to put it into context. I don't
sure.
think women talk about money nearly as much as they should. So my base was like 165
So
a
you're
year
making 165K a year
plus bonus.
plus, okay,
Mhm.
200 grand a year. Let's just round it up, 200 grand a year. When you leave, what is your thoughts? Because obviously, I'm sure you're good with money. You probably have enough saved to last for a little bit. Not maybe not your whole life, maybe so, but a
Right.
little bit. What's your thoughts on financial state? Because I'm always interested, not
Oh
about how
yeah.
much anybody make, because that's not my business what people make, but I want to know, like when actors, like I have actors all the time, like my good friend Jason Marsden, Disney Channel, I have him on all the time, and I go, man, I don't care how much you made on this show. I just want to know, are you financially stable? Am I going to have to worry if if you don't get the next show, or you're going to, lose everything? So
Yeah.
what was your thoughts when you left? Because you mentioned it was just right out of the blue you left. So were you thinking that were you thinking about leaving this entire time, or was it just out of the blue, I'm done?
Well, so actually, I was gifted from the universe being laid off. So I
COVID.
had already said,
Gotcha.
yep. I was like,
Gotcha.
I'm going to leave by December 31st. But I think, God, whatever, that's my higher power, but whatever your higher power is, I think he knew that I was still too addicted to the money drug, and I would have tried to figure out a way. Well, now I'll just stay till my bonus comes. Now I'll just stay till this point. And I wouldn't have like cut the cord. So I had already been thinking about it. I knew it was coming. We had started like just kind of curbing some of the unnecessary spending, just to kind of like brace for it. And then the call came August 12th. They were like, we don't need you anymore. Your position's being eliminated. And the emotions were twofold. On one hand, it was like the biggest sense of relief. And I literally like packed the kids in the car and we went to a Mexican restaurant and I got a margarita and we like celebrated with lunch. And I was like, I'm a free woman. This is great. And at the same time, like literally the second I hung up the phone, like I started to cry because I was like, they don't want me. Oh my gosh. Like it's one thing when you want to walk away, but it's a different thing when someone says they don't want you. So, I'd be lying if I said that it didn't hit me, but I was so lucky because I did have a call with a woman that I had been working with to write my speech to like start doing motivational speaking. And I knew I had to get on that call. So I just had like a minute breakdown. And then I was like, okay, just get on this call. Like everything's going to be fine. Like the universe has already got your plans in motion. Like you're good. And it was fine. There was this big sense of relief from that. Like, okay, this is gone. I can do this. We also did meet with a financial planner not too long after that, just to see like what our situation was. And we were like very relieved after going through that process because then, I think you always think you don't have enough money.
Right.
Like there's
Yeah.
always this fear, like, yeah, but can I keep up this lifestyle? And what will my kids be able to go to college? What will I have money
Well,
for?
to be fair, you also had a back support of a job, so you could order 150, 200, $300 worth of Amazon if you wanted to, and know, okay, I'll make that $300 up next week. But now that
Right.
$300 is no longer, what's going to happen next with this 300? Because I bought this Amazon when I could have paid 300 on the phone bill, 300 on the electric bill.
Yeah. And so I was really lucky also. We went on vacation. So right after I got laid off, I just felt like I was telling my husband, it was right before Labor Day. And I was like, I feel like I need a break. I need to get out of this house. Cause again, COVID, like we'd all been stuck in the house for forever. I'm like, I need to go somewhere and just separate old Karen from new Karen. Like this new amazing life that I want to create. I want to become a life coach. I want to help other women make this transition like I have. But I don't feel like I can do that until I like have some sort of, I don't know, like separation or like, bury the old and like rebirth the new. And so we went to Cape Cod and it was amazing. We had a wonderful week, but it was the first time I had ever let my husband pay for all the things on the vacation because I was the sugar mama, right? I was the breadwinner. So when
Okay.
so when we ever went on a vacation, it was me just swiping credit cards for the whole week. And then, so on this vacation, I think I paid for one lunch and I bought coffee for myself one morning or something. And he paid for everything else. And we came back and I looked at his bank statement and I just had this like pit in my stomach. And I was like, I have to work. I have to have income. Like, what am I going to do? So I did end up consulting for a little bit. So I had a side gig, and I consulted for almost 2 years now. So I will be done at the end of September of this year, 2022. And I'm now in a position where I don't need the consulting anymore. I have made up enough money through that 2 years of consulting. And now with my life coaching really kicking in and having more clients, like I'm in a good spot where I, have enough coming in. So it's good. It's exciting.
Yeah,
But it was nerve wracking.
I fully understand. I see exactly where you're coming from. But you mentioned earlier that I'll quit December 31st, or we'll wait, December 31st already passed, and they promised me a bonus on the second, so I got to stay to the second. That's like anything in life. But mostly I associate it, obviously I'm not the skinniest person. I associate it with weight, because you're like, I'm going to lose weight. Well, it's almost the holidays. So let's just give it till
Yeah.
January, make the new year, new me. Those fucking pricks that say that all the time.
Yeah.
Uh, and then January comes and you go, well, I had a Coke on the first. So let me give it a week because I done root. It's like, start right now.
Yeah.
Start. And if you fail, guess what? In the morning, wake up, you're going to be clean and empty. Start again. Keep failing. Start again.
Yep.
That's what a lot of people don't understand is you have to keep. I saw this great motivational quote, and it said, you can still, it was like, you can start a company at 18, fail at 32, restart over at 48, and then fail at 62 and restart at 80. Like, it was, you have to. I mean, to like, it's like Colonel
Yeah.
Sanders. Colonel Sanders didn't make it KFC till he's 70 years old and died 7 years later. Like, it's, but
Yeah.
I'm glad those 7 years he got to enjoy,
Yeah.
even if he got to
It's
enjoy it for
never
six
too late.
months, it's never too late.
Yeah.
So when you go, okay, you're done. You start this little side gig where you're consulting. Now you're figured out, okay, I want to be a motivational speaker. Can anyone be a motivational speaker? Like, can somebody just come out of the room? Can I just come out tomorrow and go, okay, ladies, ladies and gentlemen, let's do a motivational speaker. I'll be coming to your school every Thursday. Can you do that? Like, how do people promote themselves, one, as
Yeah.
a motivational speaker? It's like, just because I make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, can I consider myself a surname chef? Because you have to go to school to be a chef. Like, what's it like to
Right.
do a motivational speaker?
Yeah, actually, that is probably one of the few professions that you can really just say, "Hey, I've
Okay.
done some speaking. My aim is to be motivational in nature." Boom, that's what you put out there. And I think there is something though that, you have to be confident enough to own that. So I remember when I was first building my plan, so just to go back to the book for a second,
Mhm.
no one buys a memoir from someone they don't know, right? You buy a
Right.
memoir from like Johnny Cash because you're like, I love his music. I want to know more about Johnny Cash or Madonna or whoever, right? So my editor was like, you can't just put out a memoir and expect people to buy it. Nobody knows you. You need a platform. You got to build a website. And I'm like, a website? Well, what am I going to put on my website? And so I had been doing some speaking gigs and I was like, well, I'm like, I'll put motivational speaker. That'll be good. And literally, like, once I owned that and I like spoke it into the universe, I won a seat in this course to write your speech in 90 days and like have my signature talk. And I was like, okay, universe, what are you telling me? This is
Mhm.
where you want me to go, isn't it? Okay. Like it just kept lining things up. And I actually last night just had a call to talk at Business in Heels, which is doing their Borderless Business Solutions Summit in November. And it's going to be from Australia through to the US time zone into the UK. And then I think they're going to go up into APAC. So it's basically going to be like almost 24 hours where we're going to have this like borderless summit. And I'm going to be speaking on personal branding brilliance and how to really stand out and get your personal brand in check so that you can have the success you're looking for. So, it's just one of those things that like you start to put it out there and own it and it starts to come to you.
You know, I always find it interesting, like, your main audience is obviously female. Like, your main audience is
Mm-hmm.
a female. And I find it not odd, but I find it like, well, why am I talking to her? I'm a guy. It's like that Bill Burr joke where he goes, "You see Michelle Obama, she does more things than a man does. And wait till the first lady, wait till the first lady comes in and she's doing all this stuff. Wait till the female is president and watch what happens when the male starts doing it. He just shut the fuck up and sit down. Like, it's these weird things where you know
I love Bill Burr.
but yeah, but you're right. When you came to me and you were like, hey, I wrote a book, a memoir. And I was like, okay, all right, I'll give you my honest reaction. I was like, okay, I don't really know who she is, but I don't know who a lot of people are. And then I just started looking at your stuff and I go, oh, she's telling a memoir, but it's like a self-help memoir. Like it's a
Yeah.
comedic take, and I understand what she's doing with the motivational speaking. You went backwards, I should say. Instead of being a motivational speaker and writing a book, you wrote a book and said, okay, now I have to motivational speak and do speeches to get this book out to people. So I
Yeah.
appreciate people
Yeah.
that do the things opposite.
Thank you. I like to be a little unconventional, do
so
things my way. And that's
so
probably why it didn't work in corporate, because I
probably so.
just can't be put into like a box.
Yeah. So I want to know, somebody that was in movies and all that stuff started out, can you watch a movie today and look at it different? Like, are you looking at it differently? Because
I think
I
so.
say that because I review movies on the podcast, so I can never watch a movie and not go, damn, they should have done something. I can never watch it as just to be entertained. I have to watch it and just
Sure.
critique it, because that's what I do. Like, I'm awaiting to be a critic on Rotten Tomatoes. So if that happens, that's going to be crazy for me. But it's like, if I do that now, I'm never going to be able to enjoy a movie again in my life. So I wonder, is that
Yeah.
the same for you?
Of course. I'm like, oh, that person really wasn't feeling it. Or, they're not like, I'm critiquing the acting and, sometimes the set, I'm like, oh, that was continuity. Where was continuity on
Yeah.
this shot? Like his tie was done up. Why isn't it done up now? Like, those little things that they miss. Um, but those were such fun days. Like I loved being on set. That was just like everything for me. And every year we would get, because I was part of the Screen Actors Guild Awards, or the Screen Actors Guild, like I had my SAG card. Every year when they would do the awards, we would get all the DVDs and all the movies ahead of time because we could vote for who
Right.
we thought was best motion picture, best supporting actress, all that stuff. So that was like our favorite time of year because we'd get all the best movies that were coming
You
out
know,
ahead of time and we
that's
get to
the
screen
that's
them.
that's the coolest thing that I get to do. Is I had somebody on, I mean, the beginning of the podcast, and we were talking about movies, giving our favorite movies of the year or something, and she was part of something, and I got involved into it, and now I get like sent movies every week, and it's like brand new shit that come out, and I was like, this is cool. This is the perks of doing this, and it's like,
Yes.
it's the perks that get to come. So I wonder, have you watched any movies lately? And if so, what's the one that you saw where you were like, oh, that was perfect?
Gosh, I really haven't. We honestly, we cut cable
Mm-hmm.
in 2019
Mm-hmm.
because we were getting so addicted to news and we would just sit there all
Yeah.
night and like watch TV and scream at the TV and, go to bed feeling discouraged about the way the world is. So we just decided in October of 2019, right before COVID, I'm like, well, of all times, we cut cable and we didn't replace it with a streaming service. So typically, if I see a movie, it's something that we already have a DVD of, like maybe Harry Potter or
Really?
something.
That's
Like
crazy.
the
So,
kids will break something out. I know. And then my husband did get like the Yellowstone DVDs, so we were watching that show for a little bit. But I got to be honest, I have a really hard time with shows that depict violence against women. So, like, there was a scene in
mhm.
Yellowstone where one of the guys like hits this woman over the head with a
Oh yeah.
rock, and then he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh crap, I killed her," and he like chokes her out. And I was like, I can't watch this. I'm done. I leave the room. I'm like, if this is entertainment for you and this is what you want to watch, by all means. But I'm like, we are literally, our culture sometimes just makes me crazy. Like, how is that entertainment? How is watching a woman get strangled out on
Yeah.
on a TV show? I don't find that funny, appealing at all. So I just bow out.
Mm. With Yellowstone, I didn't watch it at first because I'm not a Western person. I'm not
Right.
90, so I was like, eh. But then people kept, hey, you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. And
Right.
so I joined the wagon around the second or third season. But they just take so long, damn breaks. Like Yellowstone goes on like a year and a half break. So when it comes back, I don't really care. Like now I'm sitting there thinking,
Right.
it's coming back. I don't give honestly two craps because it's just, but I think that's the part where streaming services get you. I think that's what they want. Like I think it's this corrupt business between regular T or cable and streaming services because now they're like, you can watch all episodes now. And in 3 months, we're going to come up with a new season versus, I don't know, DirecTV, Dish Network, all these places. They're like,
Yeah.
we're going to give you one a week and you're going to have to wait 9 months because we don't even know if we're going to be renewed. So that's the best part
Right.
about streaming services is they can come up with their own series and then go, okay, first episode did great. Let's give them another season and immediately start production on it. So like it's this
Yeah.
weird, corrupt platform that everybody
I know.
at, well, I got to say everybody because you're not on there. So 99.9% of people are
Right.
are connected to this thing. And it's
Yeah.
social media is just as bad as well. Social,
Oh gosh.
I stopped, and I think that may have been for me because I used to post all the time on social media, and then one point because I never put my nephews' names out there. I don't mind putting their pictures because they see them in
Yeah.
town anyways. What does it matter? But I never say their names on social media. So, and then there was a post that I put on there, and my nephew, we don't, we're not sure if he's autistic or if he's just slow.
Mhm.
So
Sure.
he has this obsessionness with watching one movie and you have to watch that movie over
Over and
and he
over.
acts like he's never
Yep.
seen it before. Like I've never seen this movie before. It's the greatest movie. And so he
Right.
was at one point addicted to the movie Cars with Lightning
Oh gosh.
McQueen
I
and
don't know a
Gator.
kid that wasn't.
I
Yes.
God, I feel bad that I was. Now that you're watching it as an adult, you're like, that's not really that good. Like it's kind of terrible. But there is about, I don't know, 80 miles away from us, headed towards the state capitol. There is a big, somebody had put out in their yard and they created the Lightning McQueen and the Mater cars out of old vehicles. Looks just like them. They
Oh,
redesigned it.
neat.
And so we had stopped and he was freaking out. He was climbing on the car, climbing on it, taking pictures. And so I put on there on social media and said, my nephew met his hero today. Because he's 3. He doesn't have a
Right.
Howard Stern as a hero. It's what he watches every day. You will not believe the comments I got. He's 3. How in the world does a car a hero? You're teaching him wrong things. And I go, do you not forget the part that he's still in diapers? Did you not forget the part that he has to wear
Right.
Velcro shoes because he can't tie his shoes? And I was like, after that was 6 months ago. And since then, I just post once a week, every podcast. I post a podcast. And I'm just like, I like social media for a while. And then you get like, it's like you like it for a while. You see everybody getting hated on.
Right.
You're like, wow. And then you get hated on. You go, ooh, that doesn't feel good. It's like, ooh,
No, it's amazing. Like I made very early on a conscious decision that I would never post something A, that I wouldn't say to someone's face, and
right.
B, that would bring them down. Like I will only speak light and beauty and positive things to other people. And there's times, trust me, where I'm scrolling through and I'm like, oh, I would love to give them a piece of my mind. And then I'm like, why? So my acronym is SOB, scroll on by, and
Mm-hmm.
just keep on
Mm-hmm.
going, because that me sharing my opinion, first of all, they don't care. They're probably
Right.
not going to change their minds because of my thing, but it's a waste of my energy. And so I can use that energy instead to pump into my business, into my clients, into my second book that I'm working on now, which is also going to be nonfiction, but not a memoir. And like I would rather do that. And it was the same thing for me with TV, and all that stuff became a time suck, and it was taking me away from being able to go hiking or do other things, work out, things that were more important to me.
You know, eh, I see that with like the Little Mermaid now because they changed her. I don't give a shit if it's a good movie. It's a good, and it's like, and I look at it this way. I see people complain all the time, and I say, okay, before you complain, you have the right to complain. I complain about stuff all the time, but before you berate Disney, berate this young actor that's trying to make it big as Little Mermaid, think about it for a second. Is it A, going to keep you from sleeping at night? B, keep you from learning other things, keep you from doing things? Is it really bothering? If it is that bothering you that much, you need to go find a doctor, because this
Get
is
some
not
therapy.
this is not my mom hates me and she told me to go to hell the other day and she won't answer my phone calls. This is not that. This is, they've literally changed the color of a mythical creature. You know, a mythical creature.
Yeah,
And it's, I think that all the
it's
time. I'm like,
crazy.
is this keeping you from living your life? If not, no, it's not. Pretty much, it's 99% chance it's not. Who cares? But people just have this thing about them where they have to say what is on their minds 100% of the time, and they don't care. It's like people that go, oh, he's speaking the truth. No, he's speaking the truth to you because that's what you want him to say. That's what you believe. He's not speaking the truth. He's
Right.
speaking out of his ass. You know,
There you go.
it's like
Yeah.
he's, no, he's not. He's speaking to the truths that you want to believe, that you believe. And it's that's why I hate the creation of politics. I hate the creation of social media. I hate the creation of debates. Because everybody
Mhm.
thinks if you're not one side, you're the other, and
Right.
it's killing the population. It is
Yeah.
killing. Like, there is now this is crazy. I'll tell you this, and we'll move off. Um, there is someone that it's about, the school's about 30-45 miles from my studio here, and we're all in the Me Too movement now.
Yep.
And this girl, I think it's a girl, wants to be identified as a feline, wants to be identified as a cat.
Oh, that's like a thing now.
That's the
It's
thing.
so weird.
That's the thing. And
Sorry, I'm just gonna say it's weird.
no, it's weird. I'm not disagreeing. It's weird.
Weird.
They are putting, in replace of a stall, of a toilet in a stall, they're putting a big litter box from one side of the wall to the other side of the wall. Which, if you want to be a cat, I don't give a shit. I ain't a cat. But it's like, but then now people are trying to sue this school for doing it, and I'm like, but you're making the problem bigger. This could just be a phase that she's going through. If not, then it's not. Then it's not. But it's like you're making it bigger, the problem bigger, just trying to sue
Fascinating.
those school. It's, I want to
It's a
know.
different time. I don't envy my kids having to grow up in this era at all. I think everyone says that. Like everyone thinks that their generation was a little less crazy than the one coming up. Cause I feel like when I was a kid, like my parents or their friends would always say, oh, I don't envy you kids at all. And I'm like, wow, gosh, now I'm saying it. Like it's true. I'm like, I'm glad I grew up when I grew up pre-cell phones. I mean, I'm older than you. I'm 42. So we didn't have cell phones. Like we could do stupid
Right.
stuff and not have our whole lives ruined because of it. Like we could be kids. And now it's a
I
confusing time.
I feel like I could have been born in the 90s. I'm just an old, like, my parents, I've said this many times, my parents, they are just now figuring out Netflix. They're just not because
Right.
they're not old. My mom was 19 when she had me. She got pregnant in high school. So they're not old. It's just they were stuck in their
Right.
ways. And now it's like, I was not allowed to listen to anything but country music and gospel. I was not allowed to listen to rock, heavy metal. But once I found it, I said, oh shit, this is great. Like, it was like Kiss and Aerosmith, all that I figured out was great. And I don't know. I feel like I was born in the wrong generation. I feel like I should have been born late 80s,
Mm,
early 90s, just because that's my space. Like, I don't want to be,
sure.
I don't want to be one of them punk people that go, oh man, I'm all 90s. I'm not, but I just feel the 90s for me is the best era of everything. Music,
It was a good time.
some of the best TV shows, some of the best movies came out. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I want to know, for someone like you that was in the corporate America, now you're doing the motivational speaking. I want to know, how do you discipline your kids? Because I would ask this to like, I'm trying to okay, Elon Musk. I would ask Elon Musk, what do you get your kids for Christmas? Because obviously, if they want something, I don't know how you raise them, but I tend to believe
Right.
that if they want something, You don't have to go, oh, we'll wait till Friday. You go get it that day. You just have that much money that you're not worried about. So that would be the question is, hey, Rock, hey, Dwayne Johnson, what do you get your kids for Christmas? Because obviously they have everything and they get everything they want. How do you discipline them? Because you don't want to come out and you say, oh, I took a switch off the old bush and I whooped them. Well, then we saw how that happened, and somebody went to jail for beating their kids with a tree limb. It's a switch, not a tree limb. But so I want to know,
Right.
from a motivational speaker, a
Yeah.
positive person, how do you punish your kids? How do you do that? What are the
So
steps you take?
yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't know if I've thought about it so much as like a process, because I think it's just something that I just do and I don't necessarily think about it. But to be honest, I do try to do a lot of positive affirmations with them, right? And like encourage good behavior. So like we had some issues like 2 weeks ago. My son was just acting up in class, talking, distracting the other kids. And I got a couple calls from two different teachers. And I was like, okay, this is a problem now. We need to sit down and talk about this. So we had a conversation, and then afterwards, like a week later, I got a text message from his teacher that he had a great day and that he was really on task and everything was good. And thank you for speaking with him. And so when he came home, I was like, I'm so proud of you. This was awesome. We're going to go out to dinner tonight, or not dinner, but dessert tonight to celebrate. Like, we're going to get you some ice cream from like the local shop. And he was like super excited. So I try to reinforce like the good stuff more so that they're like, oh, I'll get something if I do the right things. But at the same time, we do have to discipline them. So usually it's taking something away that they love. So whether that's no computer time, no dessert that night, like usually that's enough.
Mm.
And then if we have to, like we'll send them to their room or something. But my kids are really super good. All things considered, they don't have cell phones, so that's not something I can take
Mm.
away from them at this point. But I imagine that when they do eventually get them, that will be something that we take away. And they let me know every day how all their friends have cell phones. I'm like, well, that's great, but I'm not giving you one, so sorry.
If they said, Mom, I want to get a summer job or I want to get a winter job shoveling snow or whatever, to get a phone, and they
Mm.
did the passion and they did the dedication, would you change your answer?
If they were 14, probably.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah, right now, I mean, they're, 11 and 12, so
Right.
I don't see either one of them. I can't even get them to mow our lawn, so I don't know who they need to mow ours before they go mowing someone else's. But yeah, I guess I at some point, I mean, I know I'm gonna have to get them one,
Right.
but if I can keep that out of their hands for as long as humanly possible, I have every intention of doing that. And I tell them, my husband always says, "Hey, you want to be exceptional? Then sometimes you need to be the exception." And
Mm.
so we'll be the exception with being the people without TV. We'll be the exception of being the people who didn't give their kids cell phones. And we're gonna still survive. We're gonna get by. It's gonna be okay.
There was a school here that it was a Christian school nonetheless, and they punished a kid by cleaning out the dumpster. Now, now I don't have a problem with if they took a water hose and they said, "Here, take this water hose and ripped it out." Whatever, right? They made this kid climb inside the dumpster and with a rag and bleach and wash it. And I was like, I said, "Whoa." And like now this kid's parents are suing the school,
Oh,
which
I bet.
I would. And do you know there are people here that are business owners, giant business owners here in town that are for this school and are giving the school the money to fight this lawsuit? And I'm like, are you kidding me? They were literally cleaning out a dumpster, not just a school's dumpster, the dumpster to Waffle House, the dumpster to the homeless, the dumpster to this place over here. What if something that they had dropped methamphetamine? You don't ever know. I mean, that's
Oh
not a big thing
yeah.
around here. I was like, you're crazy. And I'm gonna distance my because I was friends with some of these people, and I'm like, I'm distancing myself because I see the person you are. I'm not judging how you raise your kids or how you punish your kids. But if you're with a company that did this to a minor and you're for it, I don't want any part of that, bro. I'm far away from that, you know.
Yeah, I think you gotta be so careful. I mean, the old, staying in and clapping out the erasers at
Right. That's
recess,
different.
like
Right.
that's probably like, I always tell them, they always, whenever my kids get in trouble at school, they always put them in silent lunch or they do restricted recess. So you can't
Okay.
go out and play.
Right.
And I'm like, that's the worst thing you could do for my kids because they will just then act out more because they didn't get out any of their energy. I'm like, the best thing to do for them is make them sit down and write 50 times, like, I will not talk in class or whatever. I'm like, that will get you results. And they said, we can't do that anymore. That's considered like cruel punishment. I'm like, what?
Well,
Like
then,
me, I'm like, that seems like a no brainer to me, but
well, hang on. How is that? How is that possible if they're going to restricted recess? What are they doing? Sitting in a classroom and talking, basically getting, that's kind of the opposite of what you want. Like if they're not allowed to write, then what are they doing in this restricted recess where they have to stay? Obviously, they're not just sitting there talking. They have to be doing
they
work of
just,
some kind, right?
I don't know, they sit there and do, I don't know. I think they sit there and do nothing and just like are bored. But yeah, it's different times.
Different times. Well, look, Karen, you can. I appreciate you coming on. It was a fun chat. It was.
It was.
I hope I did you justice, your book justice. I know I'm not the best interviewer or talker. So thanks
No,
for coming
this
on,
was
anyways.
fun. I hope everybody will go get a copy of The Ins and Outs of My Vagina, a penetrating memoir. You can find it on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. Also, if anyone is feeling stuck or frustrated in life and they're kind of like, how do I get unstuck? I do have a free e-guide on my website, karinfreeland.com. It's KarinFreeland. And you can download the 6 secrets to get unstuck, and that will help you on your journey. And then obviously, if you want more help or you want to talk about what life coaching could look like, you can always book a call.
And her second book, you're writing it right now. It's going to be called "The Ins and Outs of My Ear Canal." That's going to come in
No.
a couple of years. Are you going to stick with
Yeah, it's
the?
gonna be a motivational
Are
book.
you are
So
you going to
we're
stick with the anatomy for this book?
no, not for the
Okay.
second one. No. No, there may be a sequel to the Ins and Outs after menopause, I'm thinking. So we'll see. But for right now, I don't have enough material for a
Right.
second book. Although my husband keeps telling me he's going to give me plenty of material, so we'll see. But in the meantime, I'm working on more of a motivational book to help people reinvent their life.
Well, Karen, thank you for coming on. All that stuff that you mentioned, I'm going to put in the episode notes of the podcast
Awesome.
and over on YouTube. So thanks for coming on the show again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This was so much fun.
All right, thank you. Once you get your second book out or whenever you got anything else to promote, we'll get you back on here and we'll do this all over again.
Sounds good.
All right, have a good one.